Hello and welcome to week 8 of the BPL's 12th season. We are up against Porpoise, who we have made friends with over the course of this season. But now it is time for us to play against each other. His team is one of the teams that I didn't really want to play this team at the start of the season, but thinking about it more going into this week, I realized more and more oh, he genuinely doesn't have a switch into Mega Diancie. So this matchup is probably favored for me, but it is still a extremely threatening team with Iron Bundle and Raging Bolt that can Terra into any type it wants. Skarmory is also a Terra Captain. I have not listed that here, but it is. Rillaboom, obviously Grassy Glide stops Mega Diancie from sweeping in its tracks, but I do have some solid pivots into it. Rabombi isn't really a huge threat this game. If it does come, it could be Specs or something, but I think Sticky Webs is a very problematic thing to throw into my team when I have Empoleon. And then Paldean, Tauros, and Alolan and Muck are pretty solid physical walls that can, deal with a lot of pressure. Poison Dark, as I've stated in the past 2 weeks, is a bit of an inconvenience for these two. But this one doesn't have Intimidate or Eviolite, so it's a little more manageable. And then Chinchino here kind of messes around with my speed tiers a bit, and can disrupt a lot of what I want to do with Substitute this week. We are bringing a couple Substitute Mons, I won't say which yet, but we want to quickly recap. There was no Week 7 match. We got a forfeit by win from Chelsea because of a issue with scheduling. She did not want to extend our match, so she just gave me the forfeit win. Unfortunate, because I would have liked to play her, but it is what it is, and we get our 3-0 forfeit win off of that and just proceed straight into Week 8. It's tough. I would have liked to reschedule with her, but I mean, it is what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. But without further ado, let's take a look at the matchup that is relevant for this week, which is our match against Porpoise. Starting off, I think Choice Specs Iron Bundle is easily the most threatening thing he can throw into my team. I don't know if it'll exactly be this amount of speed, just because, there are some things I noticed with how he likes to invest his speed in this matchup, or not in this matchup, in his matchups, that makes me a little worried he might have more speed in it than this. But truthfully, this is all he needs: max special attack and then enough speed to get ahead of Weavile. Then just the rest in bulk, right? It could be either HP or special events. I don't remember which was more concerning to me at the time, but it's this is the ideal, most threatening Iron Bundle he can bring at me. My only resists to Freeze Dry are Weavile, period, and Terra Ice on either Pecharunt or Terra Ice or Terra Fire Terras on Quaquaval or Pecharunt, which I'm not necessarily vibing with this game. They aren't terrible, but I had other things in mind, so I ultimately just decided this thing is a massive threat and prep for it with Specs in mind. Raging Bolt is the next on my list of threats. I think it's very obvious that this comes. It's a great matchup into both Empoleon and Moltres, who Empoleon is something he does struggle with on this against my team. And alternatively, Moltres is another mon that he can't really switch into fantastically outside of Raging Bolt. So I do think Raging Bolt comes. I do think it's probably Terra Water. I could see Terra Fairy. Terra Steel and Terra Poison are also reasonable defensive brings, if he doesn't want to run Covert Cloak or something. I think Covert Cloak is the correct option, the correct item to bring against me, but he will probably bring Leftovers. I notice he has a very strong habit of running Leftovers Raging Bolt, with one exception in week 1. He is most likely going to speed creep me with his Raging Bolt, and run minimal special attack with Calm Mind to just set up and try to sweep me. But I have planned for that this week, and I do believe it will be either 243 to get 3 points ahead of max speed Empoleon, or it'll be 239 to get 3 points ahead of Shaman. if it's no speed invested. He, like I said, does not have the ability to switch into Diancie very well this week, so I do believe it will probably be Assault Vest Rillaboom, with Grassy Glide, not Overgrow. With probably Grassy Glide, or Grassy Surge, excuse me. Grassy Glide to make use of Grassy Surge, get some speed in there, or priority for preventing Diancie sweeps and all that nonsense. Knockoff is just a generally good move into me. High horsepower, U-turn. This thing takes special hits from Diancie really, really well, and while I could be a physical threat this week too, I do think he has to respect the special threat a little more, since that is what I have been pioneering my path with throughout this season. This thing is not extremely threatening. I do have pretty solid switch-ins to this. It has no rock move, which means Moltres is basically the freest thing in the world into it. It could also be protective pads with like Leech Seed or something, so that I can U-turn into Moltres without fear of getting burned. But I do believe Assault Vest is better for taking hits from Diancie, and it just gives him a more reliable pivot. He could also go with Shuka, Nidoqueen, or Pyappa. Either kind of works. I don't really have that many special psychic moves, so Earth Power is kind of the bigger threat. Diancie does have psychic moves, but like I do think Earth Power is a little more consistent, considering he does have really good psychic switch-ins in Muck and Skarmory. Speaking of Skarmory, I do think this will be a hazard-setting Skarmory with Rocky Helmet. I believe Terra Dragon and Terra Ghost are the reasonable rings on this, though there are alternatives. But like Fire is one, but then you might want to run Boots. I just think Dragon is the best because it resists Grass, Water, and Fire, and would help it out in its matchup against Moltres and Empoleon significantly. It'll probably be running either Spikes or Stealth Rocks. If he does bring Nidoqueen and Skarmory and leave something else out, then it could be Spikes on this, Stealth Rocks on Nidoqueen. I don't know for a fact it'll have Whirlwind. It'll probably have Roost over one of these moves. I don't think it necessarily needs Brave Bird. The threat of it being a Steel type for Diancie is more than enough. It could be either completely physically defensive to deal with Quaquaval better, or it could be completely specially defensive to deal with Diancie better. Both work. I do not think this will be a weak armor set, because I am not guaranteed to hit this with physical moves, although he can pretty reliably switch it in on physical moves. Up next, I do think Poros is the next mon on the list to come. Intimidate is really good into me, especially on like my physical attackers in Weavile and Quaquaval. But if he's not expecting a flying move, it will be a pretty damn good Moltres switch in. I think it's reasonable to not expect a flying move on Moltres, because you do have Raging Bolt, but like he doesn't really take flying moves well either way. It's just up to his discretion ultimately. I don't know exactly what moves this is going to be. It could have a lot of different moves, so this is really just a list of things I need to particularly watch out for. High horsepower is probably his best bet for hitting Pecharunt. He's not necessarily guaranteed to bring it because Pecharunt is a Terra Captain, but it's like you need to be able to hit Pecharunt in general. It could also have close combat or something, right? Like, there's no telling exactly what this thing's move pool is going to be, but I do think it will be 310 or 309 speed, just to be 3 ahead of max speed Moltres. And the rest will go into physical bulk, so that it can just, like, intimidate my physical sweepers and, like, make me have to consider counterplay around that. Finally, the last mon on the list I view as a really big problem is Alolan Muck. Like I said, Ribombee could come, but I don't see webs being valuable in this game. And, like, it could U-turn pivot, it could run Boots, it could run Quiver Dance or something. Like, it has options, but I do think ultimately it is not a fantastic bring-in to me, because I do have really solid resists in Empoleon and Tinglu. Like, Empoleon and Moltres switch in extremely well on Ribombee, and it really has its work cut out for it in Tinglu, on top of Weavile also outspeeding it, just naturally. So, like, it could be a Scarf set, it could be a Spec set, it could be a Boot set. I think those are the only viable ones. I don't think Sticky Webs is worth running, mainly because of Empoleon. But who knows, you could just have a way to weather that storm and deal with it that way. deal with competitive Empoleon with like Raging Bolt or something, right? Could have options for it. Finally, the Alolan Muck. Once again, don't really know what this thing's move pool could be. It could honestly be special with Dark Pulse just for Pecharunt, but I am Terra Pecharunt once again, so there's no guarantee. I believe this will be Clear Amulet. Clear Amulet Muck is the most threatening thing he could bring into my team just because of the issue regarding Parting Shot Pecharunt. Because he doesn't have a fantastic pivot into, or well, he doesn't have a fantastic way to deal with it. Outside of this, I think this is the best way he can deal with it because it just hard walls Pecharunt and solves all the problems of needing to switch into Pecharunt with Malignant Chain or Ghost moves and nonsense. And it can remove my item with Knockoff. So that's what I think he's bringing. I don't see like Chinchino could also come. It could break my subs and shit. It's a threat, but I don't think it's coming. I think it's possible, but I said it 3 times already. I don't think it's coming because it's more likely than Ribombee, at least, I will say. Let's get into what I'm bringing. Starting off with Ting Lu, we want to set a lot of hazards this game because I noticed a couple of things in his gameplay. Like I said, the biggest things were Raging Bolt never really pivots into anything. He only really ever puts Raging Bolt in when he could sack something. And he doesn't like using Toxic or Discharge. So, like, I can pretty much confidently say he's not going to throw any hacks at me. I know he likes Speed Creep, which is why I was talking about that over here. But, yeah, we're going Special Ting Lu to deal with potential Nidoqueen, but also, like, Raging Bolt is kind of the main thing. Just max Special Defense is really the best thing I can bring in this, because it's Raging Bolt, Ribombee, and Nidoqueen that Ting Lu needs to deal with. It's really just a hazard setting bot outside of that this week, with Ruination to chip things down to half health and Whirlwind to phase chip. To support Ting Lu, we have our Empoleon for the week, which is also max special defense, 4 speed EVs just to get ahead of speed creep on Muck because he likes to get 3 ahead of things. Scald is the only move I need. He does not have a good Scald switch in. This is weak. This doesn't want to get burned. This takes too much damage. It's really just Raging Bolt. Doesn't want to get burned. Super effective. Doesn't want to get burned. Doesn't want to get burned. You see what I'm talking about? And then Ribombee, it just loses to Empoleon in general. So, like, Raging Bolt's the only thing that could switch into Scald, and it's the only move I really feel like I need going into this matchup. Stealth Rocks, just to support Ting Lu and hazard stacking, because I noticed he does not bring Defog on Skarmory ever, or on Ribombee. His hazard removal is extremely, extremely weak, as you can see here. It's just these 3, and like I said, I don't think Chinchino is coming. It could. I thought about it, but I'm gonna dissuade it. I do have it in mind when I'm building, because I did bring Pecharunt. I have Roost just to be able to keep my health up, stay healthy against Specs Iron Bundle, because Freeze Dry will not 2-hit KO us with this investment, ever. And then we can Roost to get our health back. So long as we don't get frozen, our Leftovers recovery will absolutely mitigate the Freeze Dry damage, and I just need to keep the thing healthy. Yawn just, like, keeps things from doing what they want and forces switches, or it forces a sleep. Because the only thing he can really switch in on this safely on its Scald is Raging Bolt. So if we can put Raging Bolt to sleep, that's huge. Like I said, I have prep for Chinchino. We have a Enigma Berry Pecharunt with Mixed Bulk. I couldn't tell you exactly what this bulk does, but it's great for switching into Rillaboom. It's great for switching into Tauros. It's great for switching into all of the physical attackers on his team. And I can Parting Shot on literally anything besides Clear Amulet Muck. I think I do also have a bit of special defense just to take non-Earth powers from Nidoqueen, but like beyond that, like I don't really know. Malignant Chain just does really good work into anything that's like on his team. Like I said, we can Parting Shot into Skarmory and keep our health up with Recover. Curse is here for Muck. We use Curse because we actually do not die to either a Dark Pulse or a knockoff with this investment. Assuming that it is a bulky Muck instead of like just being a hard offense AV Muck or some shit. But if it's AV Muck, then or shook amok, then like Parting Shot works into it, and the problem is completely mitigated. Kirsch also works into the rest of his team. I have Terra Ghost, not for any offensive pressure, just to keep my Curse ability and get rid of my ground weakness for Nidoqueen. But we're probably not going to be terrestrializing Petra. Terra Ghost also, like, kind of low-key threatens, like, hey, I've ran banded Poltergeist in the past. Be a little careful, you know? Or it could boost my Shadow Balls. But, like, he doesn't know that. There's nothing, like, that's just a psychology thing. I don't even know if he's paying attention to that. But to support my other Terra Captain, we have Terra Electric Quaquaval to be able to take hits from Raging Bolt and Skarmory, with Terra Blast to be able to hit Skarmory. Like I said, I do expect it to be a Rocky Helm Skarm, so being able to Terra Blast it for super effective damage and either force a Terra or force a kill. Like, he doesn't have a good switch-in for both Aqua Step and Terra Blast, excluding Raging Bolt. So, like, like I said, like, he doesn't like to switch Raging Bolt in. I'm not 100% worried about, like, that happening. So, there's that to consider. But the last two members of my team are, as you probably could have expected from how much I was talking up Moltres, a Mystical Fire Toxic Roost Substitute Moltres set. Substitute catches a switch-in of any kind on the Force Switch Out. Mystical Fire is really good for just, like, punishing any switch-in. And, like, he doesn't have any Mon that wants to switch into a Mystical Fire. Like, Raging Bolt lowers its special attack. Iron Bundle obviously doesn't want to switch into attacks. Rillaboom, super effective. Skarmory, super effective. Nidoqueen gets its special attack lowered. Ribombee, super effective. Tauros is really the only option, and we have enough speed to the point where we are creeping the Raging Bolt investment, which I do expect, like I said, to be either just 3 points above base speed Shaman or 3 points above max speed Empoleon. So we have enough speed to get ahead of that, and I mean, we have enough bulk to be able to take a nice hit from the Tauros if we want to get a Toxic off on that. But yeah, really the only options he has to switch in on this are Tauros and Raging Bolt, and we have Mystical Fire and Toxic for the both of them. Mystical Fire, like I said, doesn't do anything against Tauros, but, like, Toxic does. So there's that. And we can always switch Petra into Tauros as well. Finally, our Diancie, the piece de resistance for the week. We are trying to farm kills with this thing, so we have a substitute set. I don't believe that he runs Thunderclap against me this week, but on the off chance he does, we have substitute just to punish switch outs and, like, switch ins. With a physical play rough and a special Earth Power and Power Gem, we are a mixed Diancie. Just fast enough to get ahead of what I believe his speed creep on Tauros is going to be. There is the possibility that we speed tie with it. Perhaps I should have invested 1 more point of speed into it. Perhaps my bad, right? Like, we'll see what happens when we get into the match, but that is the team. That is my reasoning for bringing everything. Quaquaval's sweeper built, but, like, I don't really want to sweep with it. I have Encore to, like, I think I mentioned, lock my opponent's Raging Bolt into any move it chooses so that it can't set up. And then we have Toxic on Moltres, Malignant Chain, Yawn, with, like, Whirlwind, like, and then substitute Diancie. Like, everything on my team has a way to manage Raging Bolt somehow. So yeah, we should be okay with it for the most part. Petra really can only do it with the support of Quaquaval, but, like, regardless, like, I think my prep is really, really solid for the week. And once again, before we get into the match, here is what I think he's bringing. This could also be Terra Ghost Skarm. I don't know if I mentioned that, just to block Rapid Spin. This could also be Terra Fairy. I do think Terra Blast and Dragon Pulse covers everything on my team, barring Empoleon. He could run T-Bolt over Taunt, but then he's apt to getting phased by Ting Lu. So that is everything I feel the need to cover this week. Let's get into the matchup. Let's take a look at what the preview is. And we see that he does, in fact, bring both Rabombi and Nidoqueen and leaves behind Muck and Iron Bundle. I think leaving behind Iron Bundle is a massive misplay in this team. In this matchup, like, yes, I have Empoleon. Yes, Empoleon kind of walls Iron Bundle a bit, but, like, that is, like, your best Mon into me, and you didn't bring it. So it's just really, like, weird. I think that was a mistake in hindsight. I have, for the record, just in case it was Rivalry Nidoqueen, made my Empoleon and my Quaquaval both male, just to reduce the damage from that, possibly. I was thinking about running Captivate on one of them, but I figured that was too much of a meme to really warrant running. So, yeah, the Raging Bolt is actually Terra Fairy, and the Skarmory is Terra Water. So, I got one... There was a Terra Water, but it wasn't on the Mon that I thought it was going to be. But yeah, if we win this, we are guaranteed playoffs. So the matchup looks favorable, and let's get into it. So I took a look over at this team, and I was like, okay, I think Nidoqueen is the most threatening thing right off the bat. That's reasonably going to be switched. Nidoqueen and Raging Bolt, right, are the two most threatening potential leads from my opponent. So I'm going to lead Ting-Lu, and if it's either of those, I'm going to get my hazards up. And fortunately, it is a Nidoqueen lead. So, like I said, we're just going to throw up a layer of spikes. The Ice Beam reveals to me that it is not, in fact, Life Orb, so I'm super confident keeping my Ting-Lu in here and going for a Ruination to catch whatever comes in. And it is the Tauros, which is fantastic. I love that thing at half health. We are going to switch into Pecharunt, because no matter what this thing wants to go for, I am comfortable taking a hit from it, and it is close combat. He goes for a Will-O-Wisp to follow it up because of my Terra Ghost, believing that it might have been a physical Pecharunt. Also, it could have been, like, maybe a hard switch into Quaquaval or something, right? That's another option, but it's very, very funny to think that, like, it's Terra Ghost, so he does that to worry about the Poltergeist. Anyways, I'm just going to Parting Shot the hell out of there, because that's always the plan. Diancie is possibly speed tied with this. I don't know for a fact, so I am going to hard switch out. Considering why he led Nidoqueen, it could be a Shuka lead, or it could be something else. I know it's not Life Orb, so it is defensive to some extent. But I believed that Rillaboom was the answer to Diancie, so I am going to switch out into Pecharunt, predicting the Rillaboom switch in. And sure as shit, in comes the Rillaboom. So that's fantastic. I'm like, alright, let's go for a Malignant Chain just cuz, right? If he switches into Skarmory, that's absolutely fine. If it's Nidoqueen, like, whatever. I can kind of get a read on what the set is. But he stays in and goes for the knockoff, triggering my Enigma Berry. It does no damage, and his Diancie answer is gone. That shit is just deleted in terms of health. We also get the Toxic and Confusion, which is sick. But that tells me it ain't Covert Cloak, and I'm pretty sure it ain't gonna be taking any more Diancie hits. I don't want to stay in on this anymore. I don't have a reason to stay in on this anymore. If it hits itself, that's great. If it switches, it's great. I'm just gonna go for a Parting Shot. In comes the Nidoqueen, and we're just going straight out into Quaquaval to apply immediate offensive pressure with an Aqua Step, baiting in the Skarmory, which is great. I don't really care if he forces me to Terra. It is, in fact, Rocky Helmet, which is kind of poopy. It's Terra Water. I don't see a reason why you would ever Terra here, because I'm Terra Electric, and I don't mind burning that right now just to kill the thing if he doesn't think I'm going to do it. He does bait out my Terra, which is, like I said, absolutely fine. I'm going to bring the Tauros down to 3%. It goes back up to 9 because of the Grassy Chain recovery. And now I'm Terrestrialized, which kind of sucks. But this thing, if it wants to switch out, it's dead. Because that is the end of the Grassy Terrain. So I'm like, okay, let's go into Pecharunt. Let's try to get a Parting Shot off to get a kill for Diancie. Because, like I said in the last week's episode, I am trying to go for kill leader of the division with Diancie at this point. He switches out Tauros. That means Tauros is dead the next time it comes in to Ting-Lu. In comes Skarmory. I am 100% comfortable Parting Shotting off of this and letting him do whatever he wants. Moltres is always my switch in here, because why not? He can't afford to let this thing take a fire move, so he goes out and sacks Tauros, which is like a reasonable decision considering the HP it had, and the fact that you don't want to switch into Teostra to begin with. Mystical Fire is revealed and does not hit anything, and he goes into Nidoqueen, which leads me to believe this thing probably is running T-Bolt, so I am just going to switch out into Ting-Lu, predicting that. And he goes for a Sludge Wave, which is covering the Ting-Lu switch-in to an extent. It did 3% because of the leftovers recovery. So I don't know how worth it was going for that read. You could have gone for an Ice Beam. But yeah, Sludge Wave I think was probably a misplay there. Sludge Beam, it like did damage, right? And it would have hurt the Moltres if I stayed in, but I'm never staying in there when I have Ting-Lu for a non-Life Orb Nidoqueen. In comes Skarmory. This is the expected bait. I wanted to get some phasing chip damage with the spikes off on Raging Bolt or Ribombee. Fortunately, Ribombee's the one to come in. Well, not fortunately. I don't love this. I would have preferred that happen to Raging Bolt. But if this was Sash, the Sash is now broken. I am going straight into Empoleon because this is the safest switch in the world, and I want Stealth Rocks up now. Energy Ball does absolutely nothing, telling me that it is not... it's not Specs, it's not Life Orb or anything. So that's funny. We're going to get our rocks up. In comes Nidoqueen, predicting I'm not sure what, but I guess it was probably rocks or a roar or something. I don't know. I am kind of okay just keeping my Empoleon in here and going for a Scald to get the chip off on Nidoqueen, make its item not relevant. And he does, unfortunately, get a critical hit on me with Earth Power, so I don't have nearly as much health to work with around Ribombee as I would have liked to. So if it's like a Boots Quiver Dance set, well, it's not Boots, we know that. It could have been Sash, but it's like not Ribombee switch in anymore, right? It's like kind of just dead. But I am going to switch out here just to save it as a sack, because Ting-Lu is like absolutely fine into this, and I got the chip that I needed. He finally reveals T-Bolt. I think that was a good enough read. I think you probably should have Earth Powered there, because if Moltres came in, like, Moltres isn't really likely. Ting-Lu is a much likelier switch in, so I do think that was another misplay with the Nidoqueen. Not the best time to reveal Thunderbolt, but like, I mean, it's his decision. I can't understand what was going through his mind when he made that decision to T-Bolt. He could have been expecting a Moltres switch in, but that was not the case of what was happening. So we are vibing, and yeah, we're just gonna set up more spikes because I take hits from this always. And I don't necessarily want to kill this with Ting-Lu. So I'm going to go out into Quavel to try to pivot in on it on the Ice Beam, forgetting that I am no longer Water type, which is kind of goofy. But it worked out because I didn't get frozen. In comes the Skarm. I'm going to Aqua Step to threaten it out again, or kill it, right? Bring in Raging Bolt. Give Diancie an opportunity. And we're going to go for the Terra Blast because, like, I'm always keeping you honest here. Your only switch in is Raging Bolt, and I know you're not going to switch in Raging Bolt. At this point, the Rillaboom will die if it enters the field due to how many hazards are up, and I believe that Nidoqueen was in the same boat. In comes Raging Bolt, because that is genuinely your only option at this point in time. And I don't mind whatever this is doing. I'm going for a Rapid Spin to clear my field of the hazards. It goes for Thunderclap, which doesn't make any sense to me. I think Thunderbolt, Dragon Pulse, both are significantly better options there, but I can, I'm not really sure. So now that he's used Thunderclap, I can go for an Encore because I'm always faster than him. It does reveal lefties. He Terras, which is fantastic because now that doesn't get popped later or anything. There's no mind games there. And now he's locked into Thunderclap. I am going to hard swap into Diancie, and he is going to choose to stay in and Thunderclap again, which works out in my favor greatly, because now I get a free substitute off. You see that the Pointed Stones are the second thing to dig into Rillaboom, so Empoleon gets its first kill for the season. Congrats, Empoleon! And the game's pretty much over at this point. He does concede at this point with GG. Diancie is going to pick up the kill on Nidoqueen. In comes Ribombee. Ribombee breaks my thingamajiggy here, which is like absolutely fine with me. I don't really care. And Raging Bolt comes in, takes a ton more damage. I did see that if it was what I expected, that Play Rough does have roles to kill here, and I was pretty confident going for a Play Rough role, even though it wasn't super in my favor. And we do completely miss the roll on that and take a ton from Terra Blast. Fortunately, though, we do have more than 25% HP, so I'm going to go for a substitute, trying to get one more kill, and we do get the kill with Diancie. It is not traded off to anybody else, so that's awesome. And that is our, technically, because we got that forfeit win in week 6, or a forfeit win in week 7, that is 2 back-to-back 6-0 victories, which is an absolutely fantastic way to secure ourselves our playoff spot. So with that, we have secured our playoff picture. That is fantastic. That is an absolutely just spectacular way to close things out for week 8. I do kind of feel bad because I am kind of friendly with Porpoise. And that does kind of threaten his playoffs picture. If he loses his match, he is guaranteed to not make playoffs. Well, not guaranteed, but he needs several other things to go wrong here. This match between Ice and Willow resulted in a 2-0 win for Ice. This was the most updated week 7 that I could get. Don Platinum did end up forfeiting the remainder of his games after week 6. So that's what's going on down here. But yeah, we are currently in first seed, and if we win one more, we will be guaranteed first seed. We haven't guaranteed anything yet, right? If Tark wins against Friday, and if we lose against John Paul, then we are second seed. And like, that's not a guaranteed promotion to the highest division. Which I would really, really like to achieve. That's like my primary goal for this season at this point, besides getting Mega Diancie to kill leader for the division, which we are now at 18-2 for, which is tied for first place. Technically, oh, that's weird. Technically, only really stopped by a kill-death ratio. We have 2 deaths on our Diancie, and somebody else has 3 deaths on their Chi-Yu, so in a different division. But yeah, that is a fantastic way to close out week 8. So we really want to close things out next week against John Paul, and that matchup is definitely an interesting one. I am very much so looking forward to recording that for next week. But in the meanwhile, that's all for me for tonight. And yeah, I'll catch you guys back for our final matchup in week 8 or week 9 next week. So kind of a scuffed narrative to end with my words, because I'm really bad at speaking right now. But yeah, I'm just on a little bit of a time crunch. I needed to be wrapped up with recording this like a few minutes ago. So I'm out of time. Have a good night. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next week. See ya!